Pura vida, amigos, and welcome back to another episode of La Vida Verde podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Human, and today my guest is a super good brother of mine. He is a journalist. He is an organic farmer. He's a student of permaculture. He's a tico, and he's also our former farm manager here at Finca Vida Verde. Eber Viquez is going to be with us today, so stay tuned. We're going to do a walk around of the farm. We're going to see some of the processes, and I hope you enjoy. Okay, Eber Viquez, welcome to the Vida Verde podcast.
Many thanks for inviting me, brother. I really appreciate it.
So Eber and I are good friends. We spent a lot of time during COVID, actually. Eber showed up at the farm. He was just a young kid, like kind of looking for opportunities to volunteer on organic farms. Very passionate about like learning, but also having a lot of energy and actually quite a bit of skill you came with. And so he was volunteering here, and then eventually we were like, dude, let's pay you some, keep working. Obviously, Eber is much larger than me. It's nice to have someone who's big and strong and
It's a lot.
That was the original agreement, was that I would feed him in exchange for work. I then realized how much a big guy like this eats.
And then you also call me Eber, like the bear, right?
Bear. Yes, his name, Eber, E-B-E-R, is not very common. It's definitely not common in the United States. Is it common here in Costa Rica?
Not even here?
No. Eber. So I always call him bear because he's like a bear.
Yeah, just one.
Un oso. Well, anyways, so thank you for coming. And what did you do today? What are you doing today?
Yeah, I was planting fruit trees in Alegria village, and we were also planting some company plants, stakes, different things. Like we want to bring diversity, biomass, and regenerate. And it's a challenge because there are so many stones, and you want the trees to have a space for the roots to grow. Mm-hmm. But yeah, fortunately, there are like two strong, nice, hardworking local guys.
Yeah, you got a couple other locals.
Yeah, we're doing the best we can.
So you're working over at Alegria now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in Alegria village, and also now in the afternoons, I am also having the chance to have this very good exchange with Human here at the farm. Maybe Human would like me to here all the time. So I am exploring different possibilities. Recently, I was working in the South Pacific, and yeah, the idea is to always, be brothers and have some kind of friendship and working together.
We've had that, and I love that. That's been it's been so good. Like we during COVID, like just hung out and farmed and had drank and listened to music. And one of the things that I loved about Eber immediately, first of all, your English is just really, really good, and my Spanish was and still is, like, I'm still learning, but specifically that. But then also Eber has this insane love, and I mean passion for 70s American 70s rock music. Like classic rock. We'll just be like busting something out. I'll be like, oh, I just hit a rock, and he'll just start busting into like a rock, or some kind of like 70s classic rock song. That's some obscure thing. I'm like, how do you even know that? How did you discover, like, is that common here in Costa Rica? Do people like love 70s classic rock, or where did you discover it?
Kind of. Maybe there is some part of globalization, maybe being in college and sharing with other mates some nice music. But yeah, I will say, more like also YouTube and, all the algorithms now.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So how old are you now?
Now I'm 25.
20.
No, I'm kidding. 28.
28.
No, I'm kidding. No, I'm 28.
You're 28. Okay. So you're 28 now. So yeah, you grew up with YouTube and these kinds of things.
Yeah. Maybe my first way was Winamp. I remember dancing.
Winamp.
Dancing Queen from I was a kid. Yeah, that was the first time I played music in a computer.
Winamp was like it was like an MP3 player, an early MP3 player. I totally forgot all about that. So, and where did you start learning English? Did your parents teach you, or?
I studied in public education in Costa Rica, school and high school, and if you pretend to learn English just for that, it's hard, you know. So because I was not like in private education where you will formally receive that, I will have like a class every Saturday, and then also music and movies and talking sometimes whenever I had the chance. Of course, when I came to Vida Verde farm with you, I started really, you know, like improving my English.
Yeah, but I feel like you already had a really great grasp of English when you first got here. I mean, so you must have like had a passion for it then. Was it you just like the idea of learning a new culture, or like, yeah?
Yeah, maybe also in college because I was studying communication, mass media communication, in journalism and social communication, different things like that. And we had all these lectures in English, so I was not speaking, but at least learning vocabulary.
So they were teaching classes in English in your university?
No, but the lectures, they will be
Lectures.
some of them in English.
From Costa Ricans or from extranjeros?
All over the world, yeah, different authors. Yeah, speaking out communication.
So you went to where, University of Costa Rica?
Yeah, that's where I was at, and then at some point I was about to graduate in journalism, and I really appreciate everything that I learned in there. But it was at some point like a place to navigate between ration and passion, or ration or emotion.
Rationale, right? Like,
yeah,
like making what makes sense and what feels right.
Exactly. Yeah. And what makes sense is, okay, be a journalist, but it became stressful for, you know, being in the keyboard all day or inside buildings, or many of the journalism media in Costa Rica, it's centralized in Central Valley and all, you know, the things that I don't like from cities, especially here in Costa Rica. There are beautiful cities in other places, but Costa Rica, Central Valley, it's not my favorite places to be. So I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? You know, at some point I had my future and my girlfriend, and I was doing that, but I was like, oh, I don't really feel doing it. But then what? How am I gonna be independent? How am I gonna be sustainable? And then I remember these days that I was depressed and I was not going to my last courses. Sometimes not really, you know, getting up to go to class. And oh my gosh, I was just doing compost in the apartment because I didn't want to throw that. I was not doing it properly in Atenas because Atenas is not like the city, right? It's like a medium thing now. So I remember my grandparents, you know, like my backyard, and just throwing the organics in there. And I was like, I am not gonna throw this in the truck, but I was not doing it well. My friends will kind of hate me and it smelled stinky. But at some point, for just being there and spending time, I could and like learn how to make compost. And that was like how you say, aha moment.
Aha moment. Your intro to like the natural like cycles.
I remember, yeah. So I was looking after some days how my depression turned into, you know, like my passion, and start looking how those organic wastes would be decomposing. I was bringing back in my bicycle of leaves from the college, from the campus, and yeah, and then there start to came all these things that come very easily in compost, like papayas, tomatoes, avocado seeds. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have a little green store in a place where there was no soil at all. It was just, how do you say, concrete.
Oh, cement. Yeah.
And then I started building soil from nothing, and months after I leave the place, like they sent pigs with all these abundance of tomatoes. Yeah.
So you were in college, you were living in a dorm or in an apartment, and you just started composting.
Yeah.
And wow. And then, so that was your intro. But you said you grew up in Atenas, right?
In Atenas, yeah. So my grandparents, like from both my father and mother, they were people doing permaculture without knowing it was permaculture.
Was.
You know?
They were,
right. All these country folks, humble people who really knew that they needed to support each other, because if they didn't, like, how would they thrive, you know? They would be poor in money, but they were rich in, you know, things that they were growing, or cattle, or, you know, different things. So they will be people very like humanistic, let's say, or very very helping. And I have all these roots. And then when I went to college, I was like, okay, let's do communication, because I don't even know what to study, but it looks like it's general. And then with journalism, I can explore other topics I like in the future, but not really like doing journalism pure and hard, as they say. So yeah, that's the thing that I was missing. And right before graduating, I started like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? What am I doing? And then with my skills, I was looking at keywords around Atenas. Like, how can I, find something or do something? And then I found Vida Verde. I was looking in Google Maps and I saw like Covilla, and I was like, this looks like something that could work.
Yeah, and I have to give a shout out to Floriana Echeverria for like putting it on Google, because she's the one who, like, she was a caretaker at one point here, and she planted it. She was awesome. She planted all kinds of stuff, but she also was like super good at like navigating like the networks and got us put on Google Maps. So I still have no idea like how to fix it, because I think I messed it up, but we are on Google Maps as Finca Vida Verde. So
yeah. So yeah, just to end up that trip that I felt very like pure, all those roots from my grandparents and my family who were planting things. Then next generation, my father and my mother. My father will be a teacher in the high school. My mother will raise up in the house. And then I will be like, okay, I am every time farther. I am supposed to be every time farther from, how do you say, the outside,
from the
nature.
The nature.
Yeah. So I had this thing of college journalism. I had this very recent discover of, okay, the power of compost. It's like a magical transformation of matter. It's like alchemy. So I was like, but how can I go with all these pieces together? So I found this organic technical program in Cartago. So by the time that I was helping you here in the farm, I was traveling like once a week. Like, it took me a lot of time, like every week, to go to 1 or 2 courses and stay in exchange of doing something farming or something with other friends in Cartago.
And then coming back here.
And then saving some more money, and then being in this permaculture course or this other. And yeah, trying to make it. And then you said, yeah, I can pay. So that made me definitely sustainable to continue studying things. And then with permaculture, I was like, okay, I think that journalism is this thing, and communication is this thing, and organic agriculture is this other thing. Like, how can I put these pieces together? And then with permaculture and integrate rather than segregate, and put all the pieces of knowledge together. Also sharing with the indigenous people in Costa Rica in different places that I had already shared a little in my career. It's all starting to make much more sense now to how to make it better.
So what do you think? What is how are you integrating those things? Are you because I know you're like still working locally, just helping out on farms and stuff, and like, but do you have a plan to like integrate your journalism? Like, I mean, that's kind of what this is right here, is kind of a cross section of, my passion for the farm, and also social media and like reaching people. And so I see that's how I'm doing it. So what is do you have a plan to do something?
Well, I have the plan of flowing with things and being sustainable. So if I need to go hard working outside and plant fruit trees as I am doing now, I'm gonna be that character. But I also know that I have this capacity, and we have already done these things in the Caribbean side especially. There is a very nice farm, diverse farm, people from different places, and they call it SIT. So in Spanish it is like Sociedad Ecológica para la Educación y el Desarrollo, which will be like ecological and educational society for development, or something like that.
Right.
So yeah.
Desarrollo, development.
Right. Ecological Society for Education and Development. So in this opportunity, we can share together with indigenous people who can share all the knowledge. And I think that I am more like a student and they are the masters. And we help this bridge of cultures with outsiders who they can pay for receiving these classes and, you know, have a nice and fair contribution for the indigenous people, because it's not like removing them out of their cultures. Like, they exist in their places where Costa Rica said, okay, we are the government and this is your little place where you're gonna live. But how can they thrive if they're in the middle of, okay, your globalization and civilization or the ancient culture? Sometimes there are these tensions, and there started to be many suicides, or how do you say, suicidios, like
societies.
No, when somebody decides to kill itself, or
suicides.
Yeah, to end up life. So it's very sad, because there is this tension that people, they feel that they are in the middle. They are not in the ancient past times, but now they don't feel that they are really integrated in new societies. Or the opportunities they have is that they will be exploited in monocrops, but classic traditional agriculture with agrochemicals and working so hard and not really being paid fairly, and having the wisdom that they have, you know, that they have gotten from their elders and the ancient indigenous people, who, in my, you know, thinking, and I think in many of us, as probably you as well, they are like the wisest. If you go deep in Bribri culture or Cabecar or any of all the indigenous groups in Costa Rica, they've been here for, it makes a lot of sense, right? They really know how to flow with nature. And then, having the opportunity to share this for everybody and to make it accessible, like permaculture, is a nice chance, as long as it feels fair, right? And everybody gets what they need.
Totally. I know the mixing of cultures is crucial. And we had a Chorotega woman on the Marcela on our podcast once, and she had a really great, we had a really great discussion about modern, bringing in the indigenous into modern and how they feel in Costa Rica. So you spent time like with the Bribri and the Quebecer mostly down there, right?
Exactly, mostly Bribri people, I would say. And also, like, it was very funny because I made my first PDC with Porvenir Design in Monteverde, and then they were doing this with the Ecology Academy with Sarah Wu and Steven Brooks and Brad here at Machu Campo.
What's it called? Ecology? No, it's was that?
Ecology Academy. I mean, it was Sarah. I know she's with Lala and people. But in this case it was Sarah sharing all the knowledge, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have the $2,000, I think, or something like that. But how can I make this exchange? So I talked with Scott and talk with Sarah, and I was like, how can I do it? Like, I would love to have some exchange or maybe pay part of it. And Sarah was like, Scott was like, well, of course there is openness, but maybe you can talk also better with Sarah. I was talking with Sarah, and she's like, you're only your presence, like I don't remember what she exactly said, but the idea is like, oh no, like, just your presence, like, that's it. And I really appreciate that.
She gifted you the
and then I was, of course, like, willing to help in something. So this is the part where it comes to indigenous people with Lucio and the Mosquito guys, or how do you explain Mosquito? So it's this territory.
Mosquitos are indigenous. We've had a couple I've done some like interviews with Mosquitos on my page, but the Mosquitos are an indigenous culture from the Caribbean, Central and Caribbean side of Nicaragua and Honduras. And so it's mostly on the Caribbean side, but they're amazing culture with amazing wisdom. And for the last 15 years, they've been coming here looking for work because they don't have access to money. They have a lot of land, very land rich culture, and a lot of wisdom, but they don't have access to like money, and they need money to buy like materials for their roofs and materials to build their houses on these lands. So they've been coming here for years, and now they're kind of like part of our family.
Exactly. So the Mosquito guys, it was Lucio and his brother. I don't remember.
Oscar.
So I was the student, in permaculture. It was this beautiful temporal bioconstruction bamboo thing in Brad's place, very close to the Machu career. Beautiful class, really integrated to nature. Then we were hanging hammocks and sitting there to study permaculture. But yeah, I remember that it was also a beautiful exchange with them, and I really, learned all what they already knew, just building and exchanging the.
Just by doing it. Yeah,
exactly.
Like Jake working together.
That's it. That's a key. Like, just do it. You're not the master speaking for hours, all this theoretical thing in this class in college, which I think it would make sense. And let's say there are some exceptions in classic, knowledge, Occidental knowledge. But it's lovely how indigenous they just do it, and they pass from one generation to other, and it's very organic, just like organic farming.
Just like organic. Speaking of organic farming, I would love to go walk around, maybe look at some of the compost and some of the projects that you've been working on here.
For sure, yeah.
Okay, and maybe before we go, you can give us a line from your favorite Doors song.
Oh, well, that's I found my own true love was. Well, it's not Sunday today, but Blue Sunday is the song how I was conquering, conquering sounds like colonialism. I don't want to use that, but my girlfriend fell in love because I went to her hammock one day in her house in Uita, in Whale Tail Place, in Costa Rica, and it was Sunday, it was raining, and yeah. That's the story.
You sang a blues that day?
I started singing blues to her.
All right. Well, I don't even know that song. So this is what I love about Eber. He's always teaching me songs that I thought I knew every song that out there, but he's always got new songs. So cool. Well, let's go walk around a bit, yeah?
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Buenos días. Yo soy humano y yo entiendo solamente dos palabras, pura vida, de pura vida.
So a beautiful thing human here in the farm is that we have always been able to collect the seeds, and I've learned to reproduce many things. And of course you already knew of these plants, like this is the hibiscus. How do you call it?
Well, we call it cranberry hibiscus.
Yeah. So yeah, it's very good for a generation. You see all the babies here, or for example, we have right here a canistel. They are still green. They will turn yellow soon, and then sometimes the fruits they just fall down, and then you can decide if you're gonna grab them. But see the abundance of having always like a beautiful covered soil, like to imitate nature. And here in Vida Verde, it's all surrounded by nature, beautiful forest. So there are so many resources that we can get the support from. Like in permaculture, they call it the zone 5. So you're not really doing anything in zone 5, you're more like in zone 0 yourself, and then you have your garden and you go expanding until zone 5. But it's a beautiful like Eden idea, right? Where you have all the things you need, wood trees, fruit trees, and then little not perennial things and herbs.
You can eat this. This is the...
Exactly, yeah. This is amazing for salads. This is a beautiful bed full of turmeric that we have growing here, and that human was selling nice golden milk while he was traveling in the States. So this is a beautiful place like many others here in Vida Verde farm, where you can just chill. And if you also want to go and explore the gardens, you want to observe and interact. But yeah, everybody has the freedom here, and that's something that I've always felt very comfortable to see, how people they can just relax in nature and connect better.
So I know, like, one of the things at Eber, one day we were just like hanging out, walking around looking at plants, and one day he like looks under the coca plant, which we have a bush. It's coca. It's what, obviously they make cocaine out of it. We don't obviously do it with that, and actually it's not the kind. There's a much bigger broadleaf variety that they make cocaine out of. This is a smaller leaf variety, but Eber noticed we had all these babies growing right under it, so we've been kind of transplanting them, and it's a nice treat just to have a little bite of a leaf, and it gives you just this mild stimulant, but it's super healthy for you, lots of nutrients. And we're also, this is basically our makeshift vivero. I've been planting a lot of seeds over time, and Eber too, so
So this is what we are doing in Vida Verde, mountain microorganisms, and what we are doing is combining beautiful leaves with mycelium. Now you won't notice the mycelium because it's all to grow. And then we have some rice and sugar that our friend Kyle used.
Perry, this is the Korean natural farming. This is what do they call it? IMO.
Yeah. IMO, yeah, indigenous microorganisms, or in organic agriculture, normally they will call it mountain microorganisms. But yeah, the idea is to reproduce them in different states and periods, and then at some point they will turn with a lot of mycelium. So we're using the leaves from the forest. We're also using semolina, the arroz. How do you call that? Like
rice bran.
So yeah, that's basically carbohydrates. If you could smell the molasses, it
smells delicious actually.
Yeah.
It's like a big cookie.
Yeah, it's like a sweet fermentation that will activate them, and then later on these solids you will reproduce them in bigger amounts of soil, and then potentially put them also in liquid, in water, and then go spray all the farm with life and diversity for self-regulation, and yeah, just beautiful abundance.
That's one of the ways that we've been building soil here for years, because when we got Finca Vida Verde, the land was very eroded. There wasn't much topsoil here. There was missing a couple layers of topsoil. So this is what we've been doing, is making mountain microorganisms, and spraying it from a backpack sprayer, like walking around and spraying it all over the farm. We've been doing that for probably like 5 years now. So definitely you notice a difference. You definitely notice more diversity. You definitely notice the plants doing really well.
And the thing is that these Eisenia foetida worms are very sensitive to sunlight. Sensitive, yeah, that's the right word. And they had not been fed for a long time. So now what we see is not maybe the first worms, but most of it's larva, soldier fly larva. So this larva will first start eating all the fruits or all the composting that we are doing in the kitchen. And then right below you can start, and you will see many more in the future, because larva will do the hard work and will digest the bigger things, the biggest food, and then the worms right below will start to reproduce and to create all these very beautiful finished how you say, worm fertilizer
castings.
Yeah,
worm castings we call it.
So these are the first worms that are coming back, and then the larva actually, instead of being an opposite for them, is like a good thing that help decomposing the biggest foods or the bigger pieces first, and then the worms, little worms, will do the rest of the work until it becomes a very fine material. You just keep it here, and then you start putting other layers. You put this, and then worms pass through, and then you have many of these pieces until you just let it sit and have one of the best organic fertilizers. Yeah. So this is the compost place, and we've been rotating between two places. So this is the first place where we got all this material out, putting different layers of compost from the kitchen, greens from outside. As you see, all these pineapples, they are very little, so the rest we will plant, but these baby ones we will use them like greens, combine it with leaves and trunks, cardboard, and then after a while, if you keep it water, we just bring the material out. This is the first time we bring it out, and it's already very composted. Maybe we could put it, we could have another rotation to that side or to the other side with the shovel. But this is very good for fruit trees. It's almost done, you know, like it will end up decomposing in the same place, and this is all the food for the trees that we are using here. And when this place is full, right, human, we will then go to the other side. So then we will first have like a hugelkultur, is this German technique that you will have like bigger trunks below to give some air and oxygen.
And this is just our kitchen compost, so we don't use the humanure for this. We have a separate compost for the humanure or the composting toilet. So you know, we could mix them. Some people do mix the kitchen scraps. Oh, look at this jackfruit.
Yeah, or the jackfruit's falling down.
Is there any good in there? There might be some good in there. Nah, it's bad.
So compost.
So yeah, so we just use like fruits and things that we find on the farm and our kitchen compost for this area, and then the human manure is over there. Well, thank you. It's been a lovely day with you, Mr. Eber Viquez, and appreciate all your hard work here that you do here on the farm, all that you've done over the years. And if you want to come visit us here at Finca Vida Verde, you can find us at fincavidaverde.com. You can also find us on Instagram at Finca Vida Verde CR. And and check out the podcast. We have many other episodes with very interesting people at La Vida Verde Podcast on YouTube, also on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. And if you want to support this and see more of this kind of stuff, please go check out our Patreon, patreon.com/La Vida Verde Podcast. I'm Matthew Human. This is Eber Viquez from Finca Vida Verde.
Yeah, from life. I am to serve you. You can just contact me through whatever you share about me, and I can help with permaculture and whatever little I know from this. So thank you, humans.
All right, thank you so much. We'll see you next time on La Vida Verde Podcast every Tuesday at noon.